Oh dear. Would you look at that world out there? I don't think they're ready for us yet. Sup kids, how are you doing today? It is lovely to speak to you, as always. I mean, you might not get that conversational experience back from me because this is a one-way street, and when I say things, then who knows, you might be replying and I come at me if you want to talk about something, but you might have to do it in the comments. It might take a little bit of time. Apologies. That's what the live streams are for, when we do live streams, so you can have instantaneous gratification of things you need to go along and what you want to discuss. That's how you get instantaneous gratification. If you do want to check those out, Chilling with Concrete, first Sunday of the month. Anyway, getting past that point, wherever we go. I have a bad habit. I do. I mean, I have many bad habits, he says, after drinking his second cup of coffee in the space of an hour. There's not much which can be said for me. I have quite a few bad habits, but one of the... I mean, maybe I'm disclassifying this already. Maybe it's not even a bad habit. It's just something which I thought was worth discussing because it's something I've noticed about myself. I'm the kind of person who looks at themselves, not in a mirror, but, theoretically, as the term may be. And I think it's important to define yourself in some way in your own head. It's important to kind of pick at a few things when you notice them, when you notice yourself doing it. Like if you're drinking a lot, you're drinking more than you regularly do. If you notice that you've gone through a bottle of whiskey in a week, perhaps you should think about why you went through a bottle of whiskey in a week. Or, if you're drinking 2 bottles of wine in a day, maybe you should, it's going to be harder to do because you drink 2 bottles of wine a day, but, consider yourself. Maybe not define yourself. Maybe just consider yourself. But whilst I was considering myself, the world of Graham and the world of concrete, one of the things which I came to mind was this whole idea of how I react to certain things and certain pressures within the world. And I wanted to see what the world thought and how they felt about things, and whether it's something which other people have noticed themselves doing. So to take you back all the way to when I was very little. Something which we were told when we were kids. Something which still sticks in my head today and probably has a lot of lasting damage of how I present myself to the world is that you should never show off, Graham. You should never show off. I have a very vivid memory of guests coming over to the house and me being told by my mother and my father to not show off. Don't be showing off. If you show off, you get into trouble or you'll injure yourself, which is true. In a couple of instances, I did injure myself from trying to show off. And then I stopped. I kept my interests to myself, not be the center of attention, not draw attention to myself, become extremely shy to a point of detriment to my own self. And that's something I maintained for many, many years. And I mean, really, this podcast was probably the first time I've actively put myself in the firing line, so to speak, and said, hey, this is something which I'm doing, and this is something which I'm going to do for my own enjoyment, but also for yourself, and I want this to be content out there and that kind of thing. It takes a fair amount of ego, which is it uses up all my ego doing the podcast. Like, all the ego I have to give is in this podcast. Everything else, you've met me in real life, I'm terrible at being confident of myself. I can be confident of things. Things are fine. A mug's a mug, but myself, nah. Barely talk about it. That happened recently when I was on the radio, and asking questions about me, and I'm thinking, I don't know how to answer questions about myself. I can answer about my work because there's a nice little divider in between me and you when my work's there. You try and approach me, it's like, doesn't matter, here's some work. We're gonna get to that. But it's something I was taught from a very, very young age, and then going through kind of growing up and experiencing levels of bullying and high anxiety and mistreatment at the hands of others who were also finding themselves. It was never a thing. Even intervening in things was not really possible for me. I have quite a few memories of, obviously being bullied myself and then seeing other people be bullied, thinking I should step in, I should do something, I should involve myself in this situation. But because of the personality I was rocking at the time, and the mentality I had, the goal was never to intervene. Be a shadow. As much as you could be a shadow, and so I was. And there's situations I regret, and situations I think I should have stepped in, and I could have probably helped. Who knows? Maybe it wouldn't have helped. Maybe it made things worse. But there's definitely situations where I think I could have helped out, or at least taken some attention away. And then jump to me being a teenager. And being a teenager is all about getting attention, and being a teenager is all about defining yourself in the world, making that act of rebellion something which you can be proud of and something other people should be wary of. So I did a lot of that. Again, a lot of my artwork led into that. Again, it gave me a nice little point of distinction to just push people away, put a little boundary between people, and evolve that into being. And yet my personality again stayed quite pliant, quite docile, quite doing nothing and saying nothing, because my opinion's worthless, as it were. In terms of, I still don't think my opinion is particularly worth much. I'm just some nonsense on the internet. You all know that, right? Like, you're aware of this. That's how the situation is unfolding. But something which I developed later in life, I guess maybe probably in my 20s, was this idea of injecting myself into situations to be an irritant. And I think the first time I noticed that I was doing this was actually I was watching an episode of King of the Hill, and Bobby, the kid in King of the Hill, was trained to be a rodeo clown, and there was a comment which was made by one of the rodeo talents, is that you're not there to be a hero. You're not there to be a hero. You're there to protect the people who are risking their lives and protect the bulls from getting injured. That's the whole point. And I thought, hang on a minute, am I a fucking rodeo clown? Like, am I a rodeo clown? Because what I started to do was, I never wanted to be the center of attention, but what I actually wanted to do was just kind of help the other people within the situation by performing absolute nonsense. And you'll watch me do this in conversation. If you ever have a conversation with me, if something's getting a little uncomfortable for someone, I will throw something out. I will just mention something, or I will make a joke, or I'll make a comment in order to distract from that, to ease the tension on the other person. I do it at home. I do it with family. If something's boiling over and personalities are clashing, I just inject myself into that situation. And I notice even furthermore when there's kind of arguments happening. I got really good at it when I was working in bars, of just diffusing fights, right? Diffusing fights. And I'll do it on nights out as well. And part of it was just going, okay, right, so there's two people fighting, what can I do? So I'll wander over, drunk as the day, and I will just inject myself into that situation, because somehow I'm pliant, and somehow people find me calming. So when I introduce myself and I say, hey, what's going on here, guys? Is there anything I can help with? And of course a bouncer or whoever's going to tell me, it doesn't matter, it doesn't concern you. I'm like, yep, no worries, I'm just checking in. That little breaker, that little stream of consciousness breaker, will distract everybody in the conversation. So even if they were really angry and really, I want to know, obviously you can't diffuse every situation in the world, but really if they're just like really going at it, there's a breaker. There's a bearded buffoon rodeo clown who's just come in out of nowhere and just gone, oh, hey, what's this situation? Do you realize this situation is ridiculous and you're both amped up over nothing? Why are you amped up over nothing? Don't be amped up over nothing. And it's kind of like a little crack in my own personality of just, I'm not a person who chases, I guess what's the word, celebrity in any way, and I'm still very much the child inside of being told, don't show off, don't say how good you are, don't pretend to perform, don't do any of that. But at the same time, I do enjoy a level of attention, because that's why I do these things. At the same time of wanting to discuss things, I want a level of recognition. Recognition, celebrity is a whole other thing. I've discovered that before. It's like, I'm not looking for love, I'm looking for your respect, damn it. Anyway, there's points to get to here as I get around to these points. And I think I noticed it more as well within just various other parts of my life, of just relationships. I moved away from the term rodeo clown. Let's be real. I saw a quote, I can't remember where it was, ages ago. It says there's a very fine line between a matador and a rodeo clown, which I completely agree with. There is a fine line between a matador and a rodeo clown. Obviously, a matador, just as a point, I don't agree with bullfighting. Just as a side point here, but this is the metaphor I'm using. So a bullfight is someone who picks a fight, right? As a matador is someone who is picking a fight. It is finding someone to fight against, a bull to fight against, and it is, placing yourself in that situation to get praise and applause, to show that you can do the best, and you can do that by hurting somebody else. Fuck that. Fuck the ego which makes you do that, right? A rodeo clown is someone who is putting themselves in a situation for people who are doing that. Is putting yourself in a situation for people who are searching for fame and glory and going, yeah, you know what? Cool, it went wrong, doesn't matter, I'll distract the danger whilst you make an escape, even though what you were doing in the first place was foolish, right? So that's why I moved away from rodeo clown. And what I instead I came up with is just like the whole idea of, really what I do is I paint a target on my back. When I go into discussions and when I go into features, there, especially when I'm confronted with something, the first thing I will do is I will paint a target on my back. I will it's like confronting a bear. I will get as big as I can. I will wave my arms. I'm saying, oh, hey, over here, come talk to me. Do you know why you can come talk to me? Do you know why there's going to be a massive target on my back? You want to find out, don't you? You're going to come over here and talk to me. I'm going to say something extremely defamatory, or maybe even I'll just throw in extra words to make you question what's going on with that guy. And do you know why I do that? Oh, there's a few reasons why we do that. I'm going to get into it. One of the reasons I do that is because it's a great way to diffuse an argument. Let's just say that. If you're being confusing, whoever is on the strong foot in said argument will lose their train of thought. It makes them double guess. It makes them stop and think. Also, it makes them think, I don't know what this person's going to do next. Which, gives them an unease, unsettles the argument, usually diffuses things to a point where either it's going to escalate on you, or they're just going to eventually have to walk away. It's almost streamlined now. I can do this kind of almost streamlined of when someone interrupts me or interrupts a conversation I'm having. It's just like a trigger in the back of my head. It's like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. Let's do this. Let's have this conversation, shall we? But the second part is, and I think this is the part which I'm thinking about more and more these days, especially kind of within my future, is I don't care if I get hurt. That's the other side of things. And that's the more worrying side of things when you really deconstruct yourself, when you're thinking, do I paint a target on my back? Do I make out that I'm a rodeo clown when I'm doing things? And it's that I don't care if I get hurt. If you're in a dangerous situation and the opportunity is for you or your friend to get hurt and you put yourself in the position of getting hurt, is it because you're wanting to protect your friend, or is it simply just that you think that you'll be able to survive this? You'll be able to go through whatever pain you're going through, and you'll come out the other side and you'll be fine. And is that because you think you're resilient, or is that just simply because your self-worth is so low that you now have embarked on this self-destructive methodology? A lot of people would say that's a self-destructive thing to do. If you're in a situation where you have the opportunity not to be hurt or upset in any way, and you push yourself into that situation, are you, is that self-destructing? If everyone was saying that, would you look at me and say you're a self-destructive person, Graham? Oh, I wouldn't say I'm a self-destructive person. I'd say some of the people who are saying you're a self-destructive person, they might be right. The other half, probably not right. They might all be saying the same sentence, but they're thinking of it in two different ways. Now, yes, I don't really care if I get hurt. That's a reality, and I think a lot of other people have that mentality as well. If you're going to enjoy something and you're thinking, well, at the end of this, I'm going to feel terrible. What is the great? Oh, there's an example of that. I was talking to somebody about it. What was it? We were discussing something. Oh, we were discussing the idea of staying up all night. So we were talking about, it was a friend's party, and I was crashing over at their house, and I said to them, well, hey, we could just not sleep, right? We could just not sleep. We could just stay up. We could do 48 hours, and then we could go out. We could go out the next day in the morning, get breakfast, go to a market, do whatever. And my friend said to me, no, because I need sleep. I will feel like shit if I don't sleep. And I thought that's interesting and all. I'll probably feel like shit too. But I have no problem with feeling like shit. And, is that a bad thing? Is that just me going in my head? It's like, yeah, I don't feel like shit. Maybe I deserve to feel like shit. Or is it simply just me thinking, you know what, it'd be nice to feel alive and like we did something challenging rather than just existing within the world. And that's the two parts of my personality kind of fighting out and going, hey, we should do more things which are uncomfortable. And the other half going, no, we should protect ourselves and we should do all the things which we know how to do. I say it's a balance. I wouldn't say I'm a self-destructive person, but I do think it is behaviour you definitely need to look out for. And I think this is why I was wanting to discuss it, is I do have this habit of painting a target on my back. I have a habit of, it's not necessarily the attention I want, and it's not necessarily that I want to be a savior for somebody. It's just, I genuinely don't really care what happens to me at the time. And that's bad, right? That's bad. That's something which I should care what happens to me. I mean, I care about myself in other parts of my life. When I'm at home, I look after myself. I eat in a manner which I consider myself fairly healthy. I don't do things to myself which I don't think I can walk away from, and I keep that balance. But when it comes to the outside world, when it comes to public situations and online situations, I'm much more along the lines of, oh, okay, cool, we're going to do this. And maybe it's just to prove that it's nonsense. Maybe that's the other half of it. What I really want to do is just prove that the situation which we considered dangerous and the person thought they were threatening, I can just walk away from, prove you can withstand it. But I don't know who I'm proving that to. Am I proving that to myself, or am I proving that to other people? Who knows? What would be the point? What's the genuine point of trying to do that if what you do in the end gets you hurt when you could just diffuse the situation as it goes? I always liked this idea of, the whole idea of politics and running for election and all these things. Of, you get a lot of people who get into these industries and get into conversations and arguments and discussions who just aren't prepared for a fight or a conversation or an argument or anything like that, because they think that when they go into it, everyone's going to agree with them and that it's just going to be the right thing, the logical thing. And then when it happens, they don't know what to do. So it looks like they don't know what to do. There's a lot of show and mirrors go into my own personality, I think, I'm realizing as I get older and older, is there is a lot of show and mirrors. I mean, we discussed this when I did the When You Relate to the Act podcast, that, what we put out there is an act. It's an online persona. It's concrete, but at the same time, there is parts of my personality which do leak out into the world and say, "Hey, this is something there." And I don't think it's a bad thing to paint a target on your back. I don't think it's a bad thing to want to. I just think you really have to be careful of how often you're doing it and the situations you're doing it in. And I think that's the truth. I think that's a fair point to kind of land this out on. But I worry about friends who maybe are friends and family who don't recognize when they do this. I wouldn't classify it as purely self-destructive, because at the same time you are helping somebody. But running yourself ragged or getting yourself hurt or getting yourself upset on the behalf of someone else, especially if someone else doesn't realize you're doing it, is detrimental to you. And you can stop it. You can consider it. You can step away from situations. You don't have to put a target on your back. There's a great song by B. Dolan called "Leaving New York," and the main lyric on it is, "I was told to pick my battles. This isn't my war. I'm fighting with myself. I'm leaving New York." And that, I think, is such a good summary for basically everything I've tried to say in about 20 minutes. Is that if you are a person who finds themselves painting a target on your back, acting like a rodeo clown, distracting things, bringing things out into the world and saying, "Hey, oh, well, look, there's a serious issue going on here. Let's protect those people and just, focus on me for a little bit. Focus on me. I can take a punch. So fuck it. Focus on me. Let's, slap me in the face." If you find yourself doing that and you find yourself considering that, and maybe even listening to this podcast, you're thinking, yeah, there's been situations where I've done that. Just all you do is, remember to pick your battles. And remember that if you are putting yourself in those situations regularly, you need to consider why you're putting yourself in situations regularly. Are you seeing a lot of situations which require you to do this? Are you seeing a lot of situations and have a lot of friends who need protecting? Or are you simply looking for a reason to get hurt? I think that's something for all of us to think about. In the meantime, I'll continue to be a nuisance where I can be, because I don't think I've found a point where I've, not been able to walk away from it. But it's an interesting thought. It may be an interesting design. Keep an eye out for that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, though. Is it something everybody does? Is it something just I do? It'd be interesting to know. But until we have that, I'll talk to you guys later.